Oh shit, I don't know what the password is. Fudge. No, because Snar's reset it. Fuck. God damn it. I think I took a picture of it on my phone. That's good security, right? When the hell did I do this? I don't even fucking remember. What's that? Oh yeah, I might own that on DVD actually, and I've never seen either. That or like Frankenhooker. I always wanted to see Frankenhooker. I never did. No, fuck. I don't think I have it. God damn it. It's fucking password bullshit. Oh, Schnar says he slacked it to me and Evan. So let's check my Slack messages. Schnar's Evan. Got it. Yep, it's some long, incomprehensible string of letters and words. YouTube. And I'm in. Okay. Crisis averted. My boss has been out for like 2 weeks, so stuff still gets crazy, but he's just like he's always very amped up. So when he's out, it's kind of nice to have a little break from it. He's back Thursday. Is that good? I wrote Face of Death. That's not it. All right, link is sent. Yeah, it's interesting. So one of the things I never realized that I hear a getting my bounce back of my voice. Like Faces of Death is a kind of a writing convention they use in the movie. Like that's interesting. Like that. Oh, like they refer to each scene as a face of death. You know what I mean? Like I always thought I didn't never realize it had a concept more than just being sounding creepy. Oh god, that fucking monkey. I really liked Joe's Instagram picture. Did you pick that up? Just like a really happy looking monkey. Yeah, made me laugh. Oh yeah, really interesting interview. Hey, I don't have any. I, I don't have any video for you, Shelton. Boo. There it is. We are live on the internet. Should let I should let Mark know. All right, Casey, I could use a cool looking like poster or VHS art for this movie, maybe, and then maybe one more picture, and then I think we're good to go. I am going to take my pre-show pit stop, and I'll be right back. Sorry, I muted your guys' mic, so I don't think anybody heard you on the pre-show. I'm sorry. It's the first. That's the first time I've done that. There shouldn't be an echo. Okay, maybe it just took Skype time to catch up or something. What are they like? Game things? Cool. Maybe. Yeah, don't do that. Well, you got the mic arm at least, so it's not going to shake your desk, but yeah. I have two keyboards at work. I have a Razer, I don't know what it's called, a Black Widow mechanical keyboard that I use for like video editing. And then I also have a like 35-year-old Mac keyboard that's like an OG mechanical keyboard thing. And if I'm not doing a lot of editing and I'm like writing emails or I'm writing whatever, I literally have both hooked up in my desk and I just like switch them around and just so I can be like bam, 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 bam. I love it. It's the best. And my wife hates it. Yeah, my wife hates it and she doesn't want it in the house. So I was like, all right, I'll just bring it to work and know everybody there. Oh, Mark signed on and then disappeared. Is Joe's on this show, right? How's Joe at? Hey, Mark, you beat Joe. Okay, can I get some like outdoor voice levels from everybody? Shelton, give me a level here. Say thanks. Kate, Casey. Yeah, you're a. All right. Keep it where you are, Casey, but I may have you turn down a little later. Depends on how excited you are, I think. Mark, give me a liar. Mark, yeah, you're good. You may just be excited, Casey. I'm psyched. We have a couple of cool emails tonight. I'm pretty excited about. So I was just watching. I've been poring over, going through this Crystal Lake Memories documentary that's like based on the book, and it's similar to the Nightmare on Elm Street one that's really long. It's like 6 something hours long, and I just got to the section on Freddy versus Jason, and they have a whole little part where they are talking about all of the different script treatments throughout the years. It's amazing, like all of the different, like in one of the earliest drafts, they pick up literally right after Jason Goes to Hell, where they're both in hell, and the devil basically pits them in a contest against each other to see who can bring him the most souls, and whoever does gets to stay on Earth and like be his minion. That was like one of the earliest ideas. I was like, that's pretty sweet. I love Freddy versus Jason, but I just think it's interesting the different. It seems like there's a lot of different ways they could have gone with it. And in case you were wondering, is Kane Hodder still really upset about not being in it? The answer is yes. Yeah. Hmm. It's what I noticed in his many interviews that he has no neck, like zero neck. It seems important. Joe, Mark beat you. Yep. Shit. I gotta grab one thing quick, and then I'm ready to rock. All right, Mark. Are you? Can you talk about this new class stuff in the show when we get to the show? Um, what what's next? What's next week? Oh, sweet. All right, we're just gonna jump in here. I'm recording. If y'all can mute, we can do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Mark's mean-spirited staff pick, Faces of Death. I'm the host of Bloody Good Horror. Joining me tonight, first up, he likes to drink. He lives in Chicago. He eats lots of meats. His name is Joe. And he suddenly just decided he liked animals in like the last 3 months, so I'm excited to see his thoughts about this movie. Next up on the show, he develops the website of Bloody Good Horror and is the managing editor. His name is Mark. Next up tonight, co-host of the Instamatic, coming to you from the Midwest somewhere, one of those Trump states. His name is Casey. Give me the finger. Sorry, dude. He must have. I'm writing some alternate fan fiction about America right now, Mark, where he actually did not win, but it's not done yet, so yeah. Last up tonight on the show, here to pick up the mantle of Schnarz's speaking truth to power, I think we decided second fanciest, maybe third, maybe tied for second fanciest person at Bloody Good Horror. His name is John Shelton. I mean, Andy's been bringing it pretty hard lately in the fancy department, so we weren't sure exactly. But you have seniority, so that might, I don't know if it's like a union thing. You may be above him just because of that. You could basically, what I'm saying is you get to pick your vacation days first, and then Andy goes. Yeah. We haven't do. That's right. We have been doing staff picks here lately, and tonight we're doing Faces of Death, a movie very well known, at least in name, to anyone who ever spent any time in a video store during the 80s and 90s. I had lots of emotions last night while watching this movie, but we can talk about that in a little bit. Mark, first up, this Friday we've got a special coming up for patrons. Can you talk about that? Yeah. So basically, if you are a patron, um, if you are a patron at any level, you can just keep an eye on your feed. I think most people, when we send out messages, probably get emails unless they turn that off. And it'll be a link to a YouTube video, and you can sync it up. So yeah, live at 9, starting the movie at 9:30. So it's a little more structured than the last time we did it. So that gives people time to tune in, get settled, and make sure everybody's kind of playing the movie at the same time. So that's cool. And BTW, Jason X is dope. So, I was just talking pre-show, but I've been watching that slowly. It's going to take about 4 years of my life, but I've been watching that Crystal Lake, whatever documentary. And the scene with the android and the fake nipples scene where he's trying to put nipples on her and they fall off. That was a practical effect. They actually rigged up a practical fake nipple effect, and I could not believe that that was real because they somehow yeah, they somehow made a practical effect that looked like bad CGI, and I just found that really impressive. So very fun, very fun. You know what I'm getting really excited about though, you guys. Next week, the exciting, thrilling conclusion to the saga of Brian Cox's Monkey Jail. We are talking War for the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, or the third one. But really, it all started there, right? It all started when James Franco dropped that monkey off. Didn't he also like create the Alzheimer's drug that gave everybody the murder virus? Wasn't that his fault? I'm trying to remember the plot of the first film. No, no, no. I think it did because he was creating a serum in a lab, right, to help. Remember, his dad was played by John Lithgow, and his dad was suffering from Alzheimer's, and he was secretly giving him doses of this stuff to try to cure his Alzheimer's. Oh, interesting, interesting. My only like My only regret about this series is that when it first started, and they were like, "Oh, by the third movie, it's going to be like a literal war between the two species," is that in my head I pictured Caesar in like full army regalia with like a beret and like medals and stuff. Like I was kind of hoped it would be that far advanced, because yeah, basically. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, let's be honest. That would be kind of sweet, but I am definitely. Do we think they've got to go for the wraparound money shot, right? They've got to go for the Statue of Liberty shot. But they're nowhere near New York, though. Like, haven't they been on the West Coast? That's the thing. Because no, the first movie, they're in San Francisco, and I assume that I don't even remember if it was ever talked about where the second movie was set. I got it. I got to admit, Joe, I'm surprised and pleasantly relieved that you showed up this week after last week. Well, if it makes you feel any better, yours was not my least favorite staff pick from this go round. So, is that true? I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. So next week, War for the Planet of the Apes. Is there anything else? What's going on in your world, Shelton? What's going on in Sophistical land? I I I almost became vegetarian just from the trailer. Nice. That is Sophistical Cinema. If you don't know, now you know. A Bloody Good Horror spinoff. You'll get one, I think, episode of that a month on the free feed, and the rest are reserved for patrons. So you get a little taste, just like like a like a crack dealer at a playground. That's how we do it. All right, thank you for that, Shelton. Hey, Mark, real quick, why don't you tell me what's going on at bloodygoodhorror.com? I would like to say that I'm surprised by these developments, but I'm not. I'm yeah. I got to say I'm kind of pleasantly surprised, or by in the first few weeks, everybody was kind of shitting their pants about it. So I was definitely feeling this little twinge of jealousy that I wasn't like in on this moment. But it's been really fun to resist that, and now see everyone the snake like come around and eat its tail, and I'm gonna just be like, oh, this is I don't know what this is. Well, I mean, I, I mean, put it put it this way: has a director ever in the history of movies like gotten more self-restraint as they got older? No. They're always just become way more batshit crazy and way more self-indulgent. So it's probably what we all should have expected from Twin Peaks. Hmm. You're on two podcasts, Joe, at least. That's right. Hey, Casey, really quick, just give me your one sentence Spider-Man review. Great. Michael Michael doesn't really do it for me so much, the Spider-Man, but it's cool. Wasn't that kind of the deal in the comics that he was like a geeky teenage high schooler? It's just they actually cast him that way, right? I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby. How do these songs ever come into your head, Joe? Like I remember that they exist, but only after you forcefully put them back into my brain. Oh, Wheatus. Support on Twitter for my hatred of the title of that movie. Still haven't seen it. Yeah, it's a dumb title. It's a terrible movie title. It's like his name and what he does. It's like if you called Halloween like Michael Murder. Yeah, 20, sure. Yeah. All right, Joe. You know what today made me want to do, Joe? No. There's not enough. But that's what it is. Joe, it's time. It is time. Can you talk to it during the show while I talk back to you? That would be cool. Okay. I might be into it. We could have a new segment, Ask Alexa. Yeah, love it. Um, Joe, please bring us this week's beer recommendation. We don't have a lawyer, but I'm gonna guess if we did, they would tell us to stop saying those things every week. Guabar, Guabar. It's hard to say, especially after nine or 10 beers. All right, fellas. With that, no more stalling. It is time to discuss Faces of Death. And we're back. Mark. Actually, no, not Mark. Just kidding. John Shelton. Did you? No. I would like to know, did you or did you not collude with John Schnars to bring us a word of the day this week? No. You just said you'd meet him in a hotel and whatever happened from there. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. They do. All right, Shelton. Let's do it. Please bring us the word of the day. Oh. Hmm. Huh. Wow. Does that also mean 90%? 98%? Love it. Very nice work. Shelton, you are one of the few people in the Bloody Good Horror universe that I will allow the John Schnars music to play under. It's basically it's it's basically you and Cece, which is pretty, rarefied company. So it's true. I feel like we maybe decided that Shelton and Andy are tied, and then Cece comes after that. But I think we decided tonight that per the union rules, Shelton has seniority. So no, Shelton, how long have you been at BGH? It's been a long time. Like I think you were not in the original OG crew, but I feel like you were brought on pretty soon after that. Yeah. Oh my God, hack offs. Yes. That was when we would pick a subject and then we would all like do this like round robin kind of column about it where we all would chime in and then address each other's arguments. It was just big long monstrosity of text we would post. I know, I don't understand it. Yeah. Uh hey hey Mark, tell me your thought process behind this pick and tell us what it's about. Yeah. I mean, even some of the fake stuff is still pretty gruesome. Yeah. All right. So what did you think of it? Dr. Mambo. Yeah. The seance is the seance is ridiculous, especially like in a movie where, in the past, 40 years ago or 30 years ago, whatever it was. I guess it might actually be. Anyway, you could make an argument for some of the stuff that you can easily pick out now as being fake as being convincing back then, but like really the seance thing with like the terrible spell, like it's such a weird leap compared to even the rest of the stuff that they faked in the movie. It's an hour 45, yeah. Um, Joe, what did you think of this? It's definitely fucking weird. Like you've never seen anything like this unless you've seen this movie. And they were actually made the same year, which is interesting. Casey Criswell. I mean, I think we like underestimate how much more savvy we are now as movie-going audiences, even normies, than back then. Like it might as well have been the dark ages as far as looking at something like this and being able to truly decipher like if it was real or not. Because you just didn't have the context for things that were this elaborately faked to be able to look at it and like really discern easily. Plus you were a kid. Plus, you were a kid, probably, most likely, right? And so the mystique, like you said, it's so built up, and maybe you watched it with some friends, but it was like definitely on the down low because you know your parents weren't letting you watch that shit unless it's Casey's dad. And so you're in a sleepover in a dark room, and you put this thing on, you're all like huddled around it, and you have to take into account like how much of that atmosphere plays into your like willingness to believe in what you're seeing because you are just so amped up about finally getting to see it, you know? Oh, fuck.
In somewhere in the mid to early 80s, they did a good enough job that's like, oh shit, I think that is really nothing but people dying. And it was something that I watched a lot when I was a couple times, through all four of them when I was younger. Whereas now, as I'm an adult, and the internet's at your fingertips, and there's just like a random thought one day, I wonder if any of that was fake, and you start searching around and you realize the whole thing was a work. It's interesting to look back on now, though, as far as a historical moment, too, though, to see how it came together, the effect it had on the filmmaker's life, things like that, which we'll get into later.
Definitely. All right. Sorry, guys. I need to stop this. I don't know what's going on.
Uh-oh. Shelton.
Holy shit.
I'll
God
just
damn it,
sign off
John.
now. Fuck.
All right. I'm going to mute you guys for a second on my end so I can listen to this.
We're muted. Do you think we're still streaming?
I think so.
I'm recording. If y'all
that
can
guy's
mute, we can
balls.
do this. I found that really impressive.
Yeah.
So
They were weird.
I like how they bounced every.
Oh.
I like
Very
that every
fun,
time they threw
very
the switch
fun.
on the electric chair, his balls bounced.
Oh.
all right, I
Thank you.
can't actually mute you guys. Can you guys just quiet for a second? Oh fuck!
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Dark room. You put this thing on. You're all. Yeah. Nope. None of that.
Ah, boy.
For like months, I checked that setting before we started, and it was all fine. I didn't check it just now, and it was fucking somehow changed.
Hmm.
Let me think.
So you didn't get any of it up to this point?
No. All right.
Ba-da-bum.
We're not very far into the review, so this is what I suggest. I suggest we restart at the top of the review because we haven't even gone around to get the table yet, and we post that.
Well, you know what?
Unless,
I've got for Sophisticult, like the MP3 recorder I've got, it just automatically starts. So I've probably got a copy of this.
Ooh, check it.
Can you listen to it?
It says recording.
Do you have any way
let
of
me
checking
see.
the file?
I mean, I don't know if I can listen to it because it's like still.
Yeah, if it's recording, but
Still
if
going.
John can hear all of us, then chances are he's recording it because I've used that software in the past.
Yeah, it's just MP3 Skype recorder. So
Yeah,
Might
if
not
he's
be the
hearing us
best
all through
quality,
Skype,
and-
he's getting it.
And there's no way to check that?
well, I don't know how to stop it because without stopping the call.
Well, why don't we just do the review
But it
with
says-
the new settings, and then if we can use the beginning of the episode from Shelton, we can. Otherwise, we'll just throw in a little disclaimer for the beginning.
It definitely says recording and file size and the numbers going up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
All right.
I think John's probably got it all.
it should be, yeah.
Okay.
I think this guy's
confident
onto
that-
something.
So hit us up. Send us a tweet if you're listening to the live stream because. Oh, actually, wait a second. Let me know if you can hear everybody else. I'm gonna do a recording here, quick. John, say something.
Oh, I'm the only John. Yeah. Hey.
Casey, say something.
Test.
Mark,
Heidi ho.
Joe.
I'm the only Joe. Ooh.
All right, now if everybody just be quiet for a second, I'm just gonna check the recording. Sorry, guys, this is annoying, but hopefully we'll be all right. Do a recording here, quick. John, say something. No, that's not right.
Oh, I'm the only John. Yeah. Hey.
Casey, say something. What is wrong with my fucking mic?
Oh, jeez.
So annoying. Let me just check my Skype settings quick. Microphone. That's right. Test 1 2 test. Let me record. Testing 1 2 3. This is Eric. Is this the right audio? Now, Mark, say something. No, now I'm not hearing you again. Say something again. Fuck. Oh, I don't want system sound. That's right. I want nothing. I want that. Apply. Okay. All right. Okay, that looks closer. Mark, say something.
Sure, I need something.
Okay, that looks like it. Casey, say something quick.
Test. 1, 2.
All right, everybody be quiet for a second. I think we're good here. Let me just check this. Testing 1 2. That's right. I want that. Okay, that looks closer. Mark, say something.
Sure, I need something.
Okay, that looks like it. Casey, say something quick.
Test. 1, 2.
Okay, I think that is correct. Have we got
Yeah,
any?
And I just checked it. I do have a recording of everything.
All right, cool. Thank you.
It's probably, not as good quality, but it'll be there.
Well, fuck. Yeah, it is what it is. My mic was not right for any of that. It was coming through my webcam. I don't know if I sounded different to you guys, but so that's gonna be really fucking annoying. But
You sounded fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't sound any different to me.
so maybe it'll be all right. We'll see. Okay. Let me record. We're recording it. So Casey was talking. I'm just gonna call on you, Shelton, and then you go. Sorry to interrupt the flow here.
Mhm.
But and we're still streaming to YouTube. So, all right, 3, 2.
Stick to all this.
All right, Shelton. How about you?
We'll say same as these guys. This is something that I
The fuck is that pack of wild dogs?
That was awesome.
yeah,
Perfect.
that's my house.
Right
We got a lot of
outside.
little dogs. So anyway, yeah, I watched this when I was a kid. I saw probably all the sequels and all the spin-offs and things like that.
Sorry.
God, fucking little dogs.
Shelton, who let the dogs out?
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa!
Oh,
Okay, can we take it from the top,
sure.
or are we? I don't know.
Welcome, everybody.
We know how big
You're
we are
alive.
in editing.
Okay, but yeah, like Joe and Casey said, like I watched this movie when I was a kid. It never even crossed my mind that this wasn't real when I was younger. Like it was just real. It was just some fucked up crazy shit that got whispered about on the playground. Watching it now, like I was a little surprised it's not as shocking as I thought it would be, or at least even as I don't want to say it wasn't unpleasant watching it, but like I feel like I've seen so much of this stuff in other things. Like just the world has like moved on so much since 1978 that
Yeah.
like
The weirdest thing is it's like kind of boring. That's the weirdest thing
yeah,
about it.
yeah. It's really it's got this it's sort of boring. It's got this weird like hippie vibe to it. It feels almost kind of like quaint. Like this is something that like really shocked people 40 years ago, and now it's kind of like
Quaint. It's
Well,
like
yeah,
small town America.
But then like in between that, there's like actual like oh shit, that's a real dead
It's
person.
not that
that's
it's
that's
quaint.
somebody who died in a car accident.
It's all
Like,
about
no
the guy's
fucking lie.
voice. It's all about the guy's voiceover, right? It's not that it's quaint. It's that it's like he's trying to make it into this oddly like spiritual highbrow thing. That's what's crazy about it. I think in my mind, and I had never seen it. I think in my mind, I always pictured it as something like, check out this murder, like this very dark, scary thing. When it's presented like this hippie dude is taking you on a journey to learn about the many faces of death, and it's like so airy and like these highfalutin concepts and ideas. Like the fucking voiceover in this movie is hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Because this guy
Not to
just
mention
So-
the soundtrack that I'm sure we'll talk
Oh,
about.
God.
this guy's taking
But the-
himself
yeah.
so seriously, and like he's like illuminating something about death when obviously what he's really doing is making this like really bootleg exploitation movie.
Well, yeah, you're expecting the Crypt Keeper, but you're getting like shitty Werner Herzog. Like he's trying to like the nature of life and death, but really he's just like check this shit out. This dude is so dead.
Yeah.
Oh, watch this. He's gonna die. Like oh look at that.
Like
Oh look at
Werner,
the
Beat the
Oh.
shit out of a monkey.
like Werner Herzog mixed with like Mr. Rogers or something. It's the only way I could think of it.
Honestly, this would be much better if it had Werner Herzog in
Yeah.
it.
oh god yeah fuck yeah.
So I had never seen this either, and I think like there's sort of two kind of parallel angles of discussion on this, and it's like, well, just on its face, like how do I feel watching this movie in 2017? And like I averted my eyes for a lot of it. It starts off with some like open heart surgery, which is like a super not Eric thing. Like I'm way not into like I never understood people that could watch like CSI or Grey's Anatomy, but then when you bring up horror movies, they're like, oh no, they're disgusting. Because it's like, bro, you literally watch surgery porn every single week. So that's like,
Didn't there used to be a show on like CNN where they just literally showed like open hearts or like
Gross.
actual surgeries, or like maybe it was Discovery or something?
sounds like my worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so it opens with that, and it's just like shots of a heart being like stabbed and the body's being cut open with interspersed with the titles, and immediately it's like, it's so disorienting. You're like, holy shit. And and it goes on, and I think I agree with Mark. Like the animal stuff is a lot of the really difficult stuff to watch because most of it seemed real. Like the dog fighting stuff looked. I'm pretty confident that was like 100% real.
Yeah, I've got to
Yeah.
imagine.
The seal clubbing stuff, and even the monkey scene, which is probably the most infamous scene in the movie that you always hear people talk about, is kind of obviously faked. But what's not faked is like that monkey looks terrified. Like I would still call what they're doing to that monkey torture, basically.
Right, everything they did
Monkey
up
torture.
until the monkey torture, yeah, everything they did up until the clubbing was real and seemed very stressful for that poor little monkey.
Well, even
Yeah.
the clubbing, like they weren't using actual like metal clubs, but they were beating the fuck out of the monkey with like a rubber club.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But like the other weird thing as it settles in is this movie is long, and oddly for a movie that is very shocking at times, it's kind of boring. But that it kind of lends itself to me to one of the film's strengths, and I say that in a weird way, but one of the strengths that allowed it to become as infamous as it is it feels like a real documentary. Like it's not, because it's so low key, it super reminded me of like when I was a kid back in the day, I'd watch a lot of Disney Channel, and they used to run those old like 1950s Disney nature documentaries that were very
I love those.
they're very staged and directed, and even like I've read articles now about how faked a lot of them were, but that's what this feels like. It's the same kind of like, I don't know, like warm colors and narration and this like forced editing and these like they have these angles that look impossible, and I don't know, that's totally what it reminded me of for some reason. But I think what that does is when you're watching it, it's not like you're watching a fake movie. It's like you're watching a real documentary that was somehow like smuggled into your video store that you're getting to watch. And so like going back in 2017, I think it would be very hard, especially for a younger person to watch that didn't really come of age in the video store era, to watch this and really get it. But you got to look at the year it was released, right? 1978. It really came at the very beginning of the boom of video stores, and really what the video store did, think about it this way, right? Like back in the day, like let's say the 50s, if you saw a movie, for starters, it had to have come from a studio for the most part, because those were the movies that made it into theaters, and you maybe only saw it once in your life, right? Like, so the home video really revolutionized things in a lot of ways. Like people could, first of all, it flooded the stores with movies, and it opened up the pathways for these independent filmmakers and distributors to just do whatever fucking crazy shit they wanted to do, slap a salacious looking title on it and poster and put it into a video theater. And so that opened the doors for guys like this to make a movie like this and get kind of like countrywide distribution in some ways. And there was no internet. You had no way of really fact checking or knowing what you were watching. And so this was a film that like purely grew from word of mouth. Like I had never seen it, but everybody in the playground that was a dude, like I think girls weren't degenerates most of the time when I was a kid, so like they probably didn't know about it. At least maybe not till they were teenagers, but you heard of this movie. Even if you never saw it, you had a like friend whose like cousin rented it once and heard the monkey scene is totally real and it's crazy, and they're so I'm really glad that I saw this and that I kind of can put that little piece of horror history on my sort of shelf of knowledge. It's very difficult to go back to nowadays, but it was just fascinating kind of watching it and picking apart what I thought was real and what wasn't. And the things that were in this movie that people thought were real are so unbelievable now to go back to. But it's not, I don't blame the people. Like they didn't have the context for this kind of thing being faked. I think it really speaks to like how revered and respected the documentary format was, that people would watch this and never go, oh, they've totally faked this, because you didn't do that. You know what I mean?
I think that's the thing. Like watching this now, like 30 years later or however many years ago I watched this, like that's the thing I found really interesting, in this viewing. Like I like the monkey clubbing scene is probably that, and probably the electrocution are like the two most well-known scenes of this movie. And it's funny because you watch it and you're like, well, this monkey's getting clubbed. Like as a kid, you're like, this is real. This is, happening. But then like, don't they say like this is taking place in a restaurant in India or something?
Egypt.
in
And it's
Egypt.
all white
and
people.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're looking and you're like, oh, everybody's white and speaking English. Like, how could this possibly be Egypt?
And the conversation is so insanely hilarious. The guy's like, "Ooh, a monkey!" Like,
Yeah, the
it's so funny.
voiceover of this, like, there's that scene, and then like the alligator scene. Like, it's just like, oh, look at that, look what's happening. And then the ritual scene has the same sort of like obviously dubbed over, but it's like, this is our future, guys. This is what's happening. This is gonna be super cool. Like, it's so laughable, but I remember not finding any humor in this when I was a kid.
Yeah, but I mean, just for how strong that mystique is around this movie, how many listeners tweeted us over this last week since we announced we are going to cover this, talked about how they were trying to psych themselves up to watch this again before the show. There was a lot of people that contacted us saying that, so the mystique is still there.
I mean,
even if it doesn't age well.
The worst part of this movie
honestly,
for me, like the worst part, was the dread of days leading up to it, of thinking about having to watch it. Like actually watching it was not as painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this was like how certain parts of, certain segments were more disturbing to people than others. Like, Eric mentioned at the top about the surgical scenes, and it's funny, we talked about like CSI or Grey's Anatomy. I've always found it hilarious how gory Grey's Anatomy is. Like, it's it's like all this like silliness and breathy romance, and then all of a sudden there's just like blood spraying out of someone as they're like ripping shit. It's like, I don't even know how that ends up on TV. It's just such a weird juxtaposition. But the surgical stuff didn't really bother me. Like I said, the animal stuff is what really bothered me.
Yeah.
If anything, this movie's just like so uneven, and we already kind of talked about it, but it's like the stuff that is unbelievable is like so unbelievable, and the stuff that is really believable is like, I mean, it is sort of a testament to this movie that there's still stuff that appears believable, and still things that, despite your cynicism, you really have to think about like how they could possibly fake it. But the weird thing is that almost takes a turn, because you're like, well, if this isn't faked, this is still like really fucked up. Like when you talk about the dog fighting thing is just awful, and like I really honestly can't see how they would fake it. The seal clubbing also seemed very real. Like the animal related stuff, that's
100% that was real.
Yeah,
the
and so
slaughterhouse stuff I thought was really difficult.
Right.
And that's what's so strange, right? Is like to me that's the stuff that's really, really hard. And like if I were to deserve any shit for quote unquote making people watch this movie, I think that's the part that I would be remorseful about, the animal stuff, because even me watching it, like, that's not, part of the interesting part about this movie is the really fake stuff, being like, oh, that's really silly, but I could see how like the effects were really cool, and like they did kind of an interesting job of fooling people. But I do think, the animal stuff is sort of irredeemable, and for someone who doesn't have any of this context, like that's the part where you'd be like, holy shit, people like actually, you could get away with that.
Here's what I will say.
70s, like you could do that.
Here's what I will say though,
Yeah.
like if you compare this to Cannibal Holocaust, the difference, I think, and I can't like I do not have like context for this, but it seemed like the animal stuff, he was filming like groups of people doing things to animals that you get the impression like was happening anyway, and they were kind of just there filming it, right? Like with Cannibal Holocaust, they picked out animals and had people do things to them just for the sake of the film, which
That's a valid point. Like this stuff was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, it doesn't make
This
it
stuff
any less
probably
awful.
was just like stock footage, or not stock footage,
Yeah.
but he probably just bought the footage as
Right.
news footage.
I
Like
agree.
He didn't
all the
even
real
film
stuff.
it.
Like
I agree.
I'm sure like the film crew didn't make.
So-
like they just bought it.
What's interesting to me too is like, I really wonder. Shelton sent around this interview with the guy who made this movie, super fascinating. Like just the history of how it was made, and the way like the one guy, the filmmaker who wrote it and everything. Like he seems to be one of the only people that's continued to just embrace his role in it, and maybe even a little reluctantly. But I think he just kind of appreciates the cult status and how it's gone on to affect people throughout the years. But like, I really wonder how much he intended it to even be believed in the beginning, because I just find it really hard to believe that the way he shot these scenes, he thought people would think it was real, especially because like the real scenes in the movie could have informed the way that he shot the fake scenes, but they didn't, if that makes sense. Like the dogfighting scene's a great example. It's one person with a camera, and they never really have a good angle on what's going on because they're trying to follow the action, and it's like there's not a lot of weird cuts or impossible angles. But then you get to like the SWAT team scene, and the police jump out of the car and dive on the ground because they're being shot at, but the cameraman who's standing directly behind the police doesn't flinch.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have all these crazy angles you'd never have of this thing. So it's just interesting to me, like, he literally, in his movie, has real shots that would have been perfect blueprints of how to fake stuff, but then instead he just shoots it like it's a movie scene. Like the monkey scene has so many angles in it, and you don't even see the head bashing. Not that like I want it to happen, but so I don't know. It's really weird. Like I almost wonder if he never really thought people would believe it, and then but didn't realize what he had. I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know.
Maybe it's just
I
that
think
maybe
I think audiences are just more savvy today.
Yeah.
And we just notice that stuff. Like
there's no way this could be made.
Because
today.
like you were saying earlier, like before you would see a movie like once, and then you wouldn't see it again. You'd tell people about it. Like I went to the drive-in or whatever, saw this crazy movie, and then like with video, like you could rent it again and again. But even then, like I said, when I was a kid, it never even occurred to me or my friends that any of this was fake.
And
and I don't know that we're necessarily the best crowd to put together that normie expectations of this movie watching it now in 2017, because I do think the audiences are more savvy, but at the same time, we have spent the last 10 years picking apart movies and looking for this stuff. So it stands out to us. Of course it does.
Sure.
But then again, I think today, like this movie, like I don't know if I would say it was like a good movie, but it was 100% ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
And like the fact that this is a little bit dull, because you can see real versions of this on YouTube, on Reddit, like
it's
anytime. Like there's all, and like even like reality TV to some degree. well, even like Discovery Channel, like there's like shows like there's one, it was like A Million Ways to Die or something, and they just like recreate like how weird people.
I think that's on like
people have
Spike
died.
or
Well,
something.
like people, you can see people get
Megadeth
you can see people get murdered on Facebook if you want to. You know what I mean? Like I think that it's something that they talk about in that article is sort of the how he sort of, whether intentionally or not, kind of predicted a lot of the really morbid voyeurism that the internet would really feed into. And obviously, like he didn't know what the internet was, but I mean. The other thing about it being the other thing about being on video is like Shelton was saying, not only could you see it again, but you could tell people about it, and it could spread by word of mouth kind of virally. I mean, you have to think about it this way. I was hearing about this movie in like the early 90s when this movie came out this movie came out before I was born. And here were like kids on the playground in the 90s were still talking about it in like hushed tones. And at that point, there had been, I don't know when the sequels came out. I don't even know, like, did this same guy make the sequels, or was it another company, or what?
I think he made 1, 2, and 3, right? And then I think 4 was just kind of a compilation of all of them.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it really can't be understated the kind of cult legend that this film was on like playgrounds in the 80s and 90s for sure.
Well, and I think part of that is precisely because some of this stuff is real. Right? Like it's still, that's kind of the crazy part, is the real stuff in this movie is not anything you could throw into like an ABCs of Death or something. Like Joe kind of mentioned it, and we were talking about something else, but like you can't make this movie in 2017. And not even from a believability standpoint, but like you could not include any of that real shit in this movie. There's just no way. There's no way it gets out.
I also just think like, and I kind of talked about it at the beginning, like this movie, a lot of the grittiness saves it. Like in this age of like HD and like, you watch Saturday Night Live, you can see the like makeup on the wigs that everyone's wearing now. Like
true.
If they restored this and made this with like today's technology, like you would see all the flaws immediately.
So also, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but whoever put this on YouTube, I think so.
Symbolizing. Is that
Well,
fair?
they put some kind of like stabilization thing on it. I have no idea why they would do that, but I don't know if you guys noticed, but during some shots,
Oh,
it was warping in this
the
really weird
background
way.
was
So that's what
yeah.
happens. That's what happens when, like, in an editing program, you put a warp. It's called warp stabilizer. But what it does is it blows the frame up a little bit and then kind of warps things to keep the subject centered. I don't know why on friggin' earth the guy would do that unless he shot it handheld off his television or something. Like, and if you read the YouTube comments, somebody says like, "Hey man, why don't you not do that?" So it's a little
Also, fascinating subnote for a movie that's so disturbing, it is on YouTube in its entirety and has not been taken down.
That's like that's what I was talking about last week. Like I'm amazed that like this thing was the closest to like renting porn when you were a kid, and now you can just
Oh my
Google
God.
it and watch
You-
it.
like,
Without...
Yeah.
If
You could like someone's kid can mistakenly find it on an iPad. You know,
if you
It's like-
really want to go down a rabbit hole, try reading the comments on the YouTube page. Is what I
Oh
recommend.
dear lord.
No,
that is a rabbit hole that I do not wish to travel down.
We're running a little late here, but I'm just curious, like, of the scenes that are faked, like, which ones kind of stuck with you guys the most?
You know what's funny? For how hokey this sort of conjuring scene is, I actually kind of liked it. I liked how silly it
Yeah.
was, specifically when the kid's voice was coming through the mom. Like it's like I just thought that was, I kind of. It was an interesting sort of like catharsis after the whole thing, because the whole thing is so like, this is so real and this is so fucked up, and this was like just so corny, and I kind of loved it.
I really thought that the execution scene was really disturbing, even though it was obviously fake. Like just the slow buildup of them, like they have to tape
Walking him down the hall and
they have to
everything.
tape his eyeballs or they're gonna explode out of his head, and then they
Oh,
actually
yeah.
kind of do. I don't know, like that scene was stuck with me, I think, afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I
That-
mean, when I saw this when I was 12, and the monkey scene and that electric chair scene still sticks
Yeah.
strongly in my
Everybody
head
talks about
before
the
going
monkey
into
scene.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
I'll
are the
say-
two parts that I remembered from this. A lot of everything else, like I'd kind of forgot. There's another scene that was not in this one that I guess is in one of the sequels. That is like it's almost like I don't want to say like in Paranormal Activity 3 they took this from it, but it's very possible they did. But it was like a security camera that like panned back and forth with these dogs that like attacked some robbers. But it was the same. Like I went and found it on YouTube later because I was like, why is the scene not in this? And I guess it's from a sequel. But yeah, it's the exact same thing that they later did in Paranormal Activity
Funny.
Interesting.
with the
I would
fan
say
thing.
like the cult scene is super cheesy, but with his voiceover, I still like found it pretty creepy. Like
That
when
was
he's
the
talking
scene-
about like, you know, after like spending 2 days, I realized this man was like a lunatic, and then like they kind of go in their thing. It's like that's like looking back on it from like that, you know, like as a kid, like that's super creepy. Like just the way that he outlines everything.
I really think like one of the things that I like was giving Eric shit about the last broadcast for was the narrator, and I actually really think the narrator in this is super strong, even though it has the same kind of like monotone documentary quality about it. And I
Dr.
think
Gross.
and I think that like the thing Eric mentioned, that like if you made this movie today, I feel like someone like a Rob Zombie or someone would pick this up and it would be like, be like, this is the most disturbing thing you'll ever see. Watch this real, and this is, the narrator in this takes on this like very philosophical, I was joking, like he's not going to eat meat. He's never going to go to church. He's not going to do all these things, because at the end of every one of these segments, he's like, after I watch this happen, I'm never going to do XYZ again. And like,
It's
that's
it's
the
just
end
so
of every single scene.
It's so interesting. It's like all this highfalutin stuff about death, and he's all, very much talking about his own experiences in the first person, which is pretty unusual for a documentary, especially during that time period. It's so weird, and it's like mesmerizing because he's just got this kind of like slow drawl about himself, and plus the weird
interesting
music
because
and...
they like narrators are often stand-ins for the viewers, and like I feel like this is such a clear example of that, because like you're watching this shit and you're trying to process it, and he's talking over it and kind of just saying what you're thinking, or or pretending to at least say what you're thinking, which I think is a really interesting aspect of this movie.
We have to wrap here. What's the one thing you wish you could unsee from this movie?
Oh shit.
Oh boy.
I don't know. Still, that like the scene where they're doing the kosher slaughtering, like that I got trouble.
Yeah, where they've like
Yeah.
they're stringing the lambs up, and they're just like
The lamb, and then like specifically, I think it's the cattle. Like they're pretty much cutting their throats, and then he talks about how they're like choking on their own blood.
Ugh.
That would
Oh yeah, the chicken with the head cut off was another one that I was just kind of like.
Oh,
that sounds bad, but
so-
like the animals being slaughtered didn't bother me that much. My dad was a hunter. I saw a lot of that stuff growing up, so I was fairly used to it.
Well, some of that's in was it Food? Is it Food Inc. or is that a book? Or what was the? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Fast Food Nation.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anything about like mass-produced meat, any documentary you see has some slaughterhouse footage like that in it.
Yeah. The one that caught me off guard the most was the dog fights, especially because they're talking about pit bulls, and I love pit bulls and own pit bulls, and it's like, oh, Jesus, I forgot about this.
I turned away on that. Yeah, I didn't need
that
to see
was
that.
rough.
I only saw really a flash of the kind of like end shot of that.
Yeah.
Well, I was paying very specific attention because I'm like, oh, I am interested to see the creative way in which they faked this. And then at the end of the segment, I was like, they did not fake
That
this.
was not
fake.
That was fake.
Yeah.
And I think it's really kind of disturbing the fact that like this was filmed in '78, and he like kind of justifies it. He's like, well, this is these people's culture. Like, whereas now it would be like, this is disgusting. This
Yeah,
is,
no, he's like, it's the
Fuck
nature
you,
of the
Michael
dog.
Vick.
This is what they
You are,
look-
you are kicked out of the NFL.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's such a larger like philosophical debate too. I think so I was writing in Slack last night the funny lines that I liked, and one of them was, "For those who drown in the wilderness, the chance of seeing the future is highly unlikely."
That's the other.
I was like, bro,
That's
yeah,
right.
if you drown, I imagine the chances of seeing the future is unlikely.
We already kind of mentioned this, but yeah, I mean, it's like just about images that stick with you. The music in this is so weird. And there's a scene where like someone is jumping off a building, and it's not yakety sax in the background, but it might as well be.
Yeah.
It's really
So
weird.
I
Pretty close.
think
The execution scene is the same. It's just like this weird like ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba, beep.
I could
I
be.
swear to God, like during some of the slaughter stuff, Old McDonald was playing in the background.
No, it
It-
was.
it 100%
100%. Yeah, that was what it was.
I could be wrong, but I kind of felt like the one dude jumping off the building could have been real. Felt like that might have been captured
There was
by.
definitely
One of the
jumping off the
suicides were for sure.
Yeah, like it felt like something that could have been captured by a news camera or something. That was like, ugh, the thud when he hits the ground. Pretty messed up.
The tough one.
All right, good
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
times, guys. Would you recommend this to somebody in 2017, Joe?
Oh boy. It's tough to say, but no, I would go with no.
Mark?
I mean, if you're looking for like, if you're aware of the sort of educational context of it, watch it. But I wouldn't recommend I would not recommend just watching it for any reason.
Casey?
I would say yes for the diehard historical aspect of it.
Shelton?
If you host a horror podcast and you've never seen it, then probably I guess you need to see it. But like otherwise, no, not really.
I would say no, honestly. Like like seek out the interview with the director. You know what I mean? Like that was way more fascinating, and I didn't have to watch any of this shit. And you just kind of see a couple stills, and you're like, all right, I get the general idea. I think that's okay.
I was just thinking about this, that when you're 16 and you see this, you can go to school and tell people about it. And now when you're 30 or 40 something, you can't really go to work and be like, hey, you should
Ooh,
I
definitely
watched
watch
some
it.
shit yesterday.
Hey, boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Faces of Death. That is Mark's staff pick. It is time to do some fan mail.
Little Shop of Horrors. It's the nuttiest, most outrageous movie musical comedy in years. Says Jeffrey Lyons of Sneak Preview. Siskel and Ebert say we both had a great time, really funny entertainment. And People magazine says it's a raucous red tickler, one of the year's 10 best.
It's your professionalism that I respect.
Little Shop of Horrors, rated PG-13.
Hi, this is Doc Broccoli Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, welcoming you to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And So are Shelton's dogs. Info@bloodygoodhorror.com. First up, Roger. Casey's Faces of Death tease inspired me to share a tale of my first experience with the film. I was 7 or 8 years old and my grandfather rented the movie and decided to watch it with me before Thanksgiving dinner. The chicken decapitation sure was a good appetizer for the turkey we were about to feast on. When I was about 19, my uncle opened a video store where he carried the entire series, although he stocked it in the back room behind with the beaded curtain with the adult films. This always made me laugh, but definitely shows how hard it was to get your hands on this movie. That's Roger, who's Robale on Twitter. Next up, Adam. This is a very... this is Adam the Diver Man. And he has some more diving stuff for us. So I asked last week about the radios. So he's coming back. He says, thanks for the kind words in the show. As another follow-up, yes, there are wireless full face mask communication systems available for divers. I've only used wired comms on a dive and can't vouch for how well the wireless ones work. That said, water and electronics rarely mix, and I assume the system would break frequently. I can't remember who made the comment, but I agree that it was odd that Matthew Modine's boat was so rusty and broken down, yet he had a fancy comm system for dives that were expected to take place roughly 5 feet below the water. To Joe's comment regarding trusting Matthew Modine's advice on decompression over me, regardless of experience, my wife agrees with you, Joe. Mark asked about the reality of impaling a shark as occurred in The Shallows. My understanding, I'm not a white shark biologist, is that those big animals are basically swimming tanks. Any expectation of fending one off is really interesting, is just wishful thinking. It was kind of humorous that the special Coast Guard team at the end of 47 meters down had spear guns. Unless they were disabling your dive buddy so the shark would go for them over you, they are basically worthless. I did have that thought, like, oh, they're just safe because they have little tiny, like, spears. I think I'm required to say that the odds of a shark attacking you, especially while diving, are minuscule. I have done well over 500 dives in Southern California, a place supposedly crawling with them, and never seen a single one. Same story with my colleagues. You might get a single sighting in your entire career. It doesn't mean they aren't there. It's just that the visibility isn't great and they aren't that interested in you. Thought you might appreciate the attached picture from one of our sampling sites at Catalina Island. The sharks are harmless leopards, but I think it still makes for a nice scene.
The fucking Catalina shark mixer.
Fucking Catalina wine mixer.
Oh, fuck. Happy to help if you guys have any shark-related questions in the future. You are on speed dial, my friend.
Jesus, I think he's answered shark-related questions I didn't even know I had.
All right, Mark, I have a long email here, but I'm like losing my voice. Any chance you want to read it?
Sure, where are you going to send it?
I'm going to email it to you here quick.
Oh, Christ, okay.
Internet.
I don't know how to use email.
Baby shark do 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 do, baby shark do 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 do, baby shark. Swimming fast do 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 do, swimming fast do do.
While Mark gets his hands on that, oh, I think that was.
Wait, did you email it to me?
I just did. Info at.
You know my email address, brother?
Who did I just send that to?
Mark at clownpenis.fart.
Who did I just send that to?
I don't know.
I sent it to somebody.
Your lawyer.
Wasn't me.
He's Jew Diamond Phillips at gmail.com.
I'm surprised he didn't go with Andrew Dice Gay. Okay, next one.
I just said it again. Do you have
It's
it?
that thing.
All right, so I got it now, Eric. Thank you. This is from Dave Lazote. Dear BGH dudes, I wanted to give you guys a huge amount of thanks for a bunch of reasons. As a man born in the early 80s, it's refreshing to find a group of people I can relate to discussing the stuff I love. I'm a huge horror fan, but saying that out loud as a 34-year-old man isn't always easy. I was told about you guys from a friend about a year ago, and since then I have a renewed excitement about the horror genre. Prior to discovering the podcast, I had 1 or 2 friends I was able to discuss recent movies or what we were excited to see next. Since I began listening, I now feel like I have an extended group of community. It's funny how just listening weekly can really make you feel like you know people, but aside from that, I have enjoyed the use of Slack to communicate. Plus, being a patron makes me feel like I'm somehow contributing to the greater good of horror. I really feel that the Bloody Good Horror podcast is everything that's so good about horror, as you guys truly share the love of the genre in a non-judgmental, usually, unless your name is name redacted because it's a person on Slack and not on the show, way. I enjoy the... Yeah. I almost Ron Burgundy that one.
Oh, shit.
I enjoy,
Sorry. Should have taken that out.
Yeah. I enjoy the various segments you guys have created, especially Joe's beer selections, as I'm a huge beer fan. I'm on Slack as well. Okay, I'll skip over that. I guess overall, I just wanted to say thank you for making a grown-ass man feel like loving horror doesn't necessarily make me a grown child. I wouldn't agree with that. We're all grown children.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so that was a really nice email. I want to say.
Wait, no, I'm not done yet. And thanks for also giving me something to look at or look forward to, as well as keeping me motivated to keep watching new horror. Keep up the great work, guys, and hopefully I'll make it out to one of the meetups at some point. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so
keep it spooky, guys.
Thanks for writing in. I mean, I think that what he'll find is that it's actually a lot of people's experience with this show, and mine especially. Like, I think one of the main reasons why I started the show and really got involved with the horror community and the internet is because I just didn't really have those connections in my like everyday life. I did when I was like young, but then everyone else, we kind of either we grew apart or my friends grew out of it or whatever. And so I think like that's what's cool about this community is like you can find that here is people who do want to take it seriously and have fun with it and kind of honor the genre that we all sort of love.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. Like, I started watching horror movies again once I stumbled upon the website before I joined. Like, I don't think I had watched most movies after like the Scream films came out. And
yeah, I kind of am in like a similar situation. Like, I watched them a lot as a kid. Like, Eric and I watched a lot of them together. And then when I was in college, I sort of fell off. Saw, the original Saw was one of the only like new horror movies I saw while I was in college. Get it? And so really getting back on the podcast like really brought me back into it in a pretty big way.
Yeah, for me, it's always been, I grew up with, I had a good group of 3 or 4 friends that we are always into horror movies growing up and digging around trying to find obscure shit we read about in Fangoria and stuff. So growing up and moving out of that town and not having them around anymore, this really kind of filled that gap, so to speak.
Totally.
Easily.
And Shelton's just a professor, so.
Yeah, I don't really like horror movies that much, but you know, whatever.
You just like movies featuring big, adorable, genetically engineered pigs.
That's my thing. That's sort of my you know.
God,
that's
I'm
my
so
go-to.
excited. I really am so excited for that movie.
Oh, yeah. If you thought this was hard, Faces of Death.
All right, guys. Info at bloodygoodhorror.com. Mark, we're also on Twitter at BG Horror.
Yeah. Luckily, I had this queued up and ready to go. So we use 2 hashtags that we read on the show. The first one is for patrons. So you can access back episodes of the show at patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. And if you are listening to a back episode and you think something's silly and you want to let everybody know about it, tweet it with the hashtag BGH Classics and try and cram the episode number in there if you can. This one and only for this week is from Burninator Bands from episode 372. Eric says, having an Atari as a kid really helps you to understand dubstep, I think.
Dude, I totally with that. We had an entire generation of kids.
Yeah,
who
you're
grew
totally
up,
with it because you said it.
you know, it was an entire generation of kids who literally grew up surrounded by bleep bloop noises all day. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that they then started making music with those noises.
With many bleeps and many blips.
Yeah.
There you go. Great. So that's it for that. We also use the hashtag AskBGH. So if you have a question that you want us to answer, just tweet it with the hashtag AskBGH, and we will we'll read it on the show. This first one's from Spokey Man Dan. Not a question, but I'm going to read it anyways. Please stop hating on Twin Peaks. You're going to be very disappointed with the beginning of this episode, my friend.
Maybe you'll get lucky and we will have lost the first part of the episode and then you won't have to hear it.
I mean, opinions are like assholes and we're all assholes, so that's just kind of how that is. Next one is from J Gauna91. I had my first viewing of Faces of Death videos at the young age of 11 or 12. What was your earliest run with these types?
Oh, I mean, at this age, 11 or 12, I mean, I was still like discovering slashers at that age, like getting excited about Halloween and stuff like that.
Pieces.
I didn't like venture out. I've talked about this before, but I didn't really venture out in the video store. Like I kind of, I would go all Halloween, I ran Elm Street, all that stuff. But then like it was very rare that I rented anything outside of that. It wasn't really till college that I started venturing out and seeing a lot of weird shit.
It was definitely, and I think it was because I had an older brother. And actually, I did a lot of this with the eldest Newell as well. Like my parents would just drop us off at a video store for like a half an hour and give us enough for like 2 movies, and we would just pick out whatever looked like the weirdest horror movie based on the cover, and we watched some real strange shit.
See, it's funny because we had so I talked about my dad getting me into Faces of Death. Right around that time, 11 or 12, my dad bought his first VCR at this little appliance store in the small town I grew up in. And they had a rental store in the back of the appliance store. And so they had a deal. You bought a VCR off of them, they'd give you unlimited rentals for the first weekend. My dad bought his VCR, or my dad came pick me up for the weekend, went and bought his VCR, and we started picking out movies, and he headed straight for the horror section. And I watched all sorts of shit that weekend I probably should not have been watching at that age. Everything from Q, what's that movie? Q, the Last Serpent, the Winged Serpent, to it wasn't Faces of Death, but there's a lot of gory stuff in there. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, stuff like that. We had a stack of like 10 of them that we took home with us that weekend and watched them all. And it was pretty great. And it was all horror, crazy horror stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of grew up in a horror and a video store rather. Like a friend of mine, when I was in about 5th grade, had like a job at a video store. Like, you know, friends of the family kind of owned it, and they would like give him like $5 to like shelf videos or whatever. And I started hanging out there, and that's what we would do. Like every Friday night, I would spend the night at his house, or he'd spend the night at my house. We'd rent like a couple of horror movies and a Nintendo game, and that was like the weekend.
Yeah.
And so, and that was a time when like nobody, you know, we were in 5th grade, and everybody was like, yeah, sure, we'll rent whatever to you. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I remember when the video store person, the only time stopping us was, I spit on your grave. She was like, no, you kids are not picking this one up.
That's a good line to draw, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I watched all kinds of probably inappropriate stuff, but you know, I turned out okay, maybe.
Look at us now.
Questionable. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit younger than everybody else, so I'm obviously, I was around during still kind of the height of video stores during the 90s mostly, but you know, by the time that I was of a horror viewing age, you were starting to get into the web a little bit, and I remember Rotten.com being my first sort of
dude, yeah, actually, yeah, that's a really good analogy to like Faces of Death. Like the internet version.
I mean, it really is the kind of transition, right, between the video store part of it to like, oh, you can find the shit on the internet, and that specific, and it's still around. I just looked just now, and I'm probably on a list. It's still around, and it's still super gross. So there you go. I'm not liable for you going to that website. I just want to mention that it's a thing. Yeah, you hear the clacking of keyboards. Okay, I'm gonna move on while you guys.
Dear Lord, the site
still there. Next one is from Skizbot. I'm going to a potluck this weekend. Can the crew please share their favorite monkey brain recipes? Thank you.
Chilled monkey brain.
The first time I read that, I thought it said monkey bread, and monkey bread's delicious. Contains no real monkeys. Next one, also from Skizbot. Which BGH crew member's mug would make the best literal face of death?
Oh.
Drunk John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Schnars, not Shelton, because we were in the company of a John. You know, John really glosses over and looks near dead, and we miss him.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Next one is from Mr. Finn 607. Yes, I have a question for Mark, and it's a GIF from The Office. It says, "Number 1, how dare you?"
I saw that today. I was laughing like an idiot at my desk.
It's really funny.
Number 1,
you know,
how
whatever.
dare you?
We all made it through together. Next one. It's from Bad Attitude for You. Our very own Jason, who writes for BloodyGoodHorror.com. This director, roommate of The Hoff, directed Knight Rider and Dragnet, and considered the grandfather of reality TV. Discuss.
I saw, I actually read that comment before, and I started looking this up. According to his IMDb, he directed 1 episode of Dragnet.
And also Knight Rider. Like that was that was my favorite fact from that article. Was that apparently when he made this movie, David Hasselhoff was his roommate.
He didn't even direct it. He wrote 2 episodes of Knight Rider, an episode of Dragnet. But it looks like he's only directed these Faces of Death movies and then a short in 2000. So there you go.
I can't believe that Rotten.com is still online.
I know.
I just went to it.
How
I'm
has
looking at it.
Gotten
It kind of
worse
looks the
looking?
same. Yeah, it looks, but no,
Yeah.
this is total like 1998. Like, oh my god, fuck.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of considering the fact that like there's probably people listening. I'm sure there's people listening to this that never even knew
Who've
that
never
was a
heard of it
thing.
and just
Now
went
they
to
know it's a
it.
thing.
When do you
And I'm
think
so
So now-
I
sorry.
could never unknow that.
Now I'm the person who picked Faces of Death for the episode and also told people about Rotten.com.
I don't
feel
know.
like-
When do you think this was last updated, though? That's the thing.
I don't know.
Oh,
Well, if
well,
you
the
look at
news
the-
section has something from 2012, so
Yeah.
it's been a while.
And if you look at this day in history, it's like December 23rd.
Oh, we used to do that on the website. Remember that, Joe?
It doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. Okay. Next one is from our very own Cece. Gummo or trash humpers? Either make y'all's lists. I'm not sure
Oh.
what lists she's talking about, but
Not a good one.
I've never seen either.
I wrote my film final on Gummo when I was in college
oh my god.
because I was in college and I thought it was a smart kid.
Hey, Joe, is there any
It's
chance
right when
that
that kid eats spaghetti in the bathtub.
Oh, it's so
Spaghetti.
gross. He drops a chocolate bar in the bathtub and then
Oh.
picks it up and eats it.
Joe, is there any chance that you still have that kicking around on like a zip drive somewhere,
I guarantee it's on a zip drive, probably in my parents' house.
or like a jazz drive? I'd love to get my hands on that.
I would love to also.
On a
but-
CDR.
CDR.
I mean, I actually haven't seen Trash Humpers, but a
It's-
roommate of mine made me watch Gummo in college, and I never forgave him.
I own Gummo on DVD, but have never seen it.
I don't know
have it-
VHS.
Yeah, I have
That,
it
Eric,
at
that
VHS.
makes you a very unique type of
I
person. That
ripped
is a
it.
weird
Listen,
sentence.
I ripped it off of Netflix. I did not actually.
Oh, so
pay
you don't
for it.
own it. You don't-
Oh, I own
Trash
it.
Humpers is pretty unwatchable. Yeah.
Is it Faces
So I
of
would go
Death?
Gummo, just based on at least having some sort of coherent story to it.
Sure. Okay. Next one, also from CC. The Mister wants to know if any of you would marry someone who showed you Faces of Death on a first date. What number date is appropriate?
None. Never.
Yeah.
And if you show this to your date and they're like, "Oh, that was great," then you should not marry them.
I guess
Yeah, you
what
still
kind
use
of,
that to exclude people,
Yeah.
not to find
What-
people.
what kind of health insurance does she have at her job? That would be
That's a factor, you're saying?
my question.
At
Yeah.
least consider it. Yeah.
Full coverage? Then yeah, probably. Dental?
Okay. Fantastic.
Oh
Next
God,
one
I
from
wish
Stout
you
2.
had not sent that picture in the chat. That's friggin'
Oh, great.
Uh-oh.
Now I have to look at it.
It's from Gummo.
Oh, no. Gummo. Gross.
Spaghetti.
Oh,
I
man.
wonder what that
you know-
kid's up to now.
There he is. I love when they put it down and he just says spaghetti.
Oh, man.
Joe, I'm like, I'm 100%
Look at that
positive.
water.
I'm 100%
What's that?
positive that you've made that reference on this show before, Joe.
Oh, 100%. Like
Yeah.
anytime anyone mentions spaghetti, it's the first that pops in my head.
Jesus.
You know what's funny?
Mom.
Have you ever seen The Road to Wellville? This kid is in it
Yeah.
also. He's like
Oh,
a
is
little
he
kid,
really?
the meat and potatoes kid. Yeah.
He's in his niche is weird movies with weird bathing scenes. This is
He
gotta
just sits in
find out.
bathtubs and eats food, and
Spaghetti.
Mom Spaghetti. All right, next one. It's from Stout
Nervous.
2114. What's your favorite fruit, and what do you think that says about you as a person?
Oh,
Oh, man.
Watermelon.
a weird question. I like blueberries.
I like my favorite strawberries.
Oh.
I don't know what it says
I
about
like
it.
a good peach.
I'm an apple fan myself.
Wow, what a diverse array
mean,
of fruits. we just
Apple's
came
a
up
good
with.
apple's a good workhorse. Same thing with like a banana. Like you're in a bind and you need some food. Both of those things are good. But if I'm like, strawberry, that's some.
Well, actually, if you're in a bind, Eric, I think bananas actually constipating.
If I'm gonna treat myself, I'm going strawberry or maybe pineapple if I'm feeling saucy.
Oh,
Wow, look at you. Grilled pineapple is a
and pineapple, apple
delicacy.
pen.
Yeah. Apple pen. All right. Last one is from Frank V1313. Do you guys feel like you needed to pour bleach in your eyes after watching this movie?
No, I just
Nah.
I
Well,
diverted.
not as much as I thought I would.
Also, I didn't mention this in the main review portion, but the Shelton pointed out something that if you're watching it on YouTube, you actually have the option to watch things at 2 times
I
speed,
could
which
not
I would.
figure that out.
I mean, he
It helped me
described
get
it
through this.
pretty simply. You click on the gear and then speed and then the
Was
number.
the gear? I thought you said the green YouTube.
Joe.
I'm like, you
Uh,
fucking asshole. I'm colorblind. I can't figure this out.
Are
I
you
will
really?
say though, I will say
don't-
that there were certain scenes that were made hilarious by watching in 2 times speed, and also it takes the edge off a little bit. So
I don't know.
Little yakety sax motion, yeah.
If you drown in the forest, you're probably not going to be alive anymore.
probably not gonna be alive anymore. And see.
An apple pen.
Apple pen. And pineapple, apple
Well,
pen.
we're not sure if the first half of the show actually exists, but the second half does. So I hope you enjoyed whatever that was. Info,
You're welcome.
info at bloodygoodhorror.com. We're also on patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. Don't forget, Bloody Good Horror 10th anniversary meetup and film screening. The date is October
21st in Milwaukee,
1st.
Wisconsin.
2017 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have not announced a venue or a movie yet, but it's being worked on, and we will. I just wanted to keep reminding people it's 1 week closer, Mark.
Mhm.
Let's get ready.
Yeah.
Next week, War for the Planet of the Apes, starring Woody Harrelson's bald ass head. Can't wait. We have reviewed the first 2 films in the trilogy. I always like being able to bring it all home for you guys, so get ready for that. As for this week, Faces of Death in the book. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
You're welcome.
Shelton.
Do I say bye now? Goodbye.
Spaghetti.
Bye-bye.